Hello again, everyone. Let's welcome next Pia Maria, who's here with us, and she's a CEO and founder of Agile People. And we are very pleased to have her here with us at the Business Agility Conference Paris. Agile People is a global network of people working to improve workplaces by supporting HR and management. Pia Maria Thoren will talk to us today about managers and what HR managers need to know when adapting their working methods to the new paradigm of employee-led organizations, or what we call self-management, and how to get people to move in a certain direction without using the power of the hierarchy. Pia, the stage is yours.
Thank you so much, Isam. I'm very happy to be here today with you in Paris. I hope it's spring in Paris. It certainly is summer here in Sweden because I'm on the west coast in Sweden and it's a beautiful sunny day by the sea. I'm going to share my screen with you and talk a little bit more about Agile People. And Agile People, as Isam said, is actually a community of people all across the world, from all over the world, who believe in a better way when it comes to how we run our organizations in a complex world. And we are all passionate about combining Agile and people to create conditions for a happy performing workforce. And we have taken the values and the principles from the Agile Manifesto. We have mixed it with the modern Agile framework. We have spiced it up with our own Agile People Manifesto. And from there, we have created 36 principles that we believe that all organizations, regardless of size and industry, need to increase. So this is the full list of the Agile People principles that are included in the book, the new book, and that we are all trying to increase by using different tools, models, methods, and frameworks. The ultimate goal here is to create an agile culture that helps any organization to adapt and be resilient in times of massive change. We also, of course, have a lot of tools and practices that we work with and frameworks, but the purpose of all of them is in the end to increase the principles and the values. It may be that you work with a lot of these tools and still may not consider yourself being particularly agile. And then the problem is that the principles cannot grow if the platform, the culture, the soil is too far away from the principles. How we view other people becomes the first and most important learning here. Douglas MacGregor, one of my heroes, he wrote a book in the end of the 1950s. It's called The Human Side of the Enterprise. And in this book, he described theory X and Y. It's how we view other people and how the human mind works. So in short, what is theory X? Well, that's when we believe that other people are lazy and unmotivated and don't want to take responsibility unless we bribe them or dangle a carrot in front of them. The Y view of people is when we believe about other people that they want to be the best they can be in their lives. And they also want to, by intrinsic motivation, contribute to creating value for other people. And if they get the right conditions, they will also do so. Why is this important? You may ask yourselves. Well, how we view other people affects how we structure our management processes. It all starts with how we view other people and what kind of structures we believe that we need to build to set them up for success. Or rather, maybe the lack of structures, because we have too many structures and too much policies in today's organizations. Another example here about how the X view of people played out in history. And this time we are in the ironing department. And today, in many countries, these women have been replaced with robots. It was about doing the same thing over and over again. And the challenge was to make the flows as effective as possible and to standardize processes. The women on this picture had no say in how things should be done. It was all carefully thought out by a few in the top. And you recognize this very well from example, the Ford factories in early 1920s, 30s, and 40s. If we instead move to the future of work, this is the transition that we see will happen. And this has already started, and it's been speeded up by the pandemic, the virus. So AI and robotics will ultimately actually not replace us. It will create more work, not less, much like it is today. And there won't be a shortage of jobs, but there will be a shortage of the right skills to perform these jobs that we see in the future of work. So there is a huge amount of unlearning, reskilling, upskilling to be done for the future of work. The majority of the workforce will freelance by 2027. And we have already seen, at least in Sweden, a lot of new enterprises, small companies and startups popping up during the Corona crisis. Remote work becomes the norm. People have this new geographic freedom to work from anywhere, and that actually opens up a lot of possibilities for people everywhere in the world to work from wherever they want. This is a huge shift, and companies in the future need to open up for people to have these flexible hours and flexibility in terms of where you're working from. That will be one of the important weapons in the war for talent for the future of work, to increase the flexibility regarding how, where, and how you work, from where you work as well. In this complex reality that we are facing for the future of work, we have to move from viewing the organization as a machine that can be controlled and managed to viewing it as a social system. People, human beings, they are not cogs in a machinery. People have feelings, dreams, challenges, and thoughts, and they cannot be controlled. People are not robots. They are complex adaptive systems that work from intrinsic motivation. And that means that we need to stop to see people as resources and view them as the living organisms as they are, who we need to treat differently to work optimally. We cannot work anymore with standardization or boxing people with labels or grades, just skills to understand better what makes each person tick, what makes everybody do what they do. To create a well-functioning social system is a very complex task, and we need to use a lot more experimentation and trial and error for it to work properly. There are no recipes for success here, and Agile is definitely not the silver bullet. So what do you need to do to make a person function optimally? You need to care about their basic psychological needs, and they are different for everybody. And this will be HR's and leaders' new role. It's about understanding psychological needs and creating the conditions in the system for people to live these needs within your organization. I have written 3 books about the topics of Agile HR, Agile leadership, and human motivation at work. And this is the first book that came out in 2017. It's called Agile People. The second book is a picture book with 220 illustrations that complement the message from the first book. And Then we have the last book that came out in September 2020. It's a co-creation project between myself and 35 agile people from around the world who have each written one chapter about one of the agile people principles. We're going to start to look at the problems with traditional leadership and HR. We have believed at least, that we can control reality and make a perfect plan, but of course, reality looks different. So the problem is that the world is not predictable anymore, and we need feedback regularly from reality to make the right choices along the way. Another problem is that we're focusing on the shareholder value when we should, of course, first focus on the customer value and the employee satisfaction and see the shareholder value as a consequence from the value creation happening between employees and customers. And as Frederick Laloux so beautifully puts it in his book, Reinventing Organizations, we need profit to survive. But that's not the reason why we run the company. The reason is to create value for some customer. And for HR and leaders, customers are the co-workers, the employees. Another problem is that managers are feeling a lack of psychological safety in agile transformation programs. What happens to me and my role when we become agile? What will become of me when everybody seems to be able to lead themselves and don't need to be managed anymore? And this problem needs to be taken very seriously and can potentially ruin the whole change initiative. The skills that took managers to the position they are in today are often not the skills that are needed to lead in a complex world. And that's what we are facing. For an agile organization, it's more about removing impediments for people to be able to perform than managing and making decisions. Although sometimes the organization needs someone to make tough decisions when the teams cannot do it themselves, in the coordination between the teams. How do managers go from traditional high power and status to servant and transformational leadership? We need to make it possible for leaders to change in the system by changing the environment. And we need to inspire leaders to find the intrinsic motivation to do that and to help them to attain an agile mindset. These are two conflicting goals, as it's only the leaders who can change organizational structures that will make it possible for increased business agility to happen. And to do that, they need the mindset. But they can only get the mindset by having the right structures and the environment. So it's a catch-22 dilemma. A bad system will beat a good person every time. Our organizational system is not making it easy for us to perform. Instead, the system is limiting us, putting obstacles in the way for great performance and letting people be themselves and perform from their abilities. Think about it. A good system can make a mediocre person fantastic, and a bad system can make a high performer perform really bad. I'm going to talk a little bit about control as well. The definition here of control is the power to influence or direct people's behavior or the course of events. And in business terms, this means controlling people and controlling the future. That's the grand illusion that most managers have today, that people can and must be managed and that the future is predictable and manageable. We also have budget problems. These problems that I'm talking about with the structural problems, they come mainly from finance and from HR. So you need to involve finance and HR in your agile transformation change initiative. The budget problems are many. It's a very time-consuming problems. Assumptions that we do in this process are very quickly outdated. It stimulates very unethical behaviors like competition and brown-nosing. It creates illusions of control, but we know that we don't have control and we need to embrace that. Decisions are made too early and often too high in the organization, and it guarantees that we have the planned costs, but not that we have the planned revenues. And it can prevent other value-adding activities that we could have engaged in if we didn't have the fixed budget. That leads also to problems with the traditional performance ratings, because when we break down the budgets, we have department goals, right? And we are rewarding them, people, to reach the department goals. But, and we also then rate people in these traditional performance ratings once a year to see, did you reach your goal or not? And often we are talking about numeric financial goals here. But a year is much too long to judge people when the organizational reality changes quickly. And we're focused on judging the past when we should instead focus on improvement for the future. We are relying on the boss knowing best how I have performed, which is maybe not the case. Maybe other people know better. It's connected to salary, this rating, which leads to that we set lower goals, of course, because we want to reach them. Sub-optimizing effects breed competition and not cooperation, and it's collaboration and cooperation that we need. And we are focusing on only results, financial targets, when we should be focusing more on behaviors for the long term. Another problem is the employee engagement, and we have seen this in numerous investigations. This one is from Gallup, State of the Global Workplace, where we see that only from 69 to 94% of employees are either not engaged or actively disengaged at work. What should we do about all these problems? Well, I have some ideas. And one of the ideas has to do with a new role that leaders and the HR need to take for the future of work. And this is the Agile People Coach role. This is a new role that more and more people discover. We created it because we believe it will be crucial for HR and leaders to change their role fundamentally to support their organization and their people to be able to increase agility in all corners of the company. The Agile People Coach is a role where you use many competencies and become more T-shaped depending on where you come from. And you can come from being an HR professional, a leader, or an Agile coach, for example. It's built on Lisa Atkins' framework for Agile coaching, but we decided that the Agile People Coach also need to take some additional roles than just coaching, facilitating, training, and mentoring. So at the top, you see where you come from. You come from being a leader, HR, or a master of Agile. And you can take all the other roles depending on the need of your organization. The navigator understands the system and are change catalysts. They apply emergent strategy and systems thinking in the organization. So they are specialists in this. And the guide has local expertise, maybe come from being a business leader for some product. The most important role of all here is the reflective observer, which is this ability to step out of the system and look at the system from outside, reflecting on what is the need, in what role can I make myself most useful? And then you step into the system and you take that role as an HR professional or a coach or a leader. So, role depending on the purpose, the people, and the situation. Let's face it, nobody can be fantastic in all these roles from the beginning. This is where your lifelong journey starts, your development journey. You always work on improving yourself and to be able to play more and different roles. What about Agile leadership for the future of work? How do you build psychological safety if you're a manager? How do you create this environment where people feel free to speak up and admit errors and mistakes so that everybody can learn from them? Well, you have to show vulnerability. You have to admit mistakes. You have to ask a lot of questions to your people. Everyone needs to work with a supportive and facilitating leadership that should be all about creating motivation towards common goals. And a good leader can create those conditions for performance and co-worker satisfaction. So You ask a lot of questions. You admit that you're fallible. And the gardener metaphor is fantastic for leadership. Here, the leader is a gardener, and we need to take care of the plants who have all different needs. And they're also trying to fulfill the overall purpose of the garden. Think about that metaphor. It's a beautiful metaphor for leadership. You can only work on the conditions in the garden. You cannot work directly on the plant. We cannot do it alone. To be able to remove limiting structures, change the culture, and start collaborating towards a more agile future, we need to join forces. HR, finance, management all need to start talking across boundaries. We need to work with boundary spanning and cross-functional team on the group functions, starting the conversation, nudging the system and the people, and move in this common direction together. Small recipe for change here. Change, remove limiting structures. Step number 1. Increase supporting structure like Scrum and Kanban boards and other supporting agile structures. And then people will start showing new behaviors that come from learning new ways of acting and working. And then we repeat from 1. This is the Agile People Manifesto, and you find that on agilepeoplemanifesto.org. Welcome to see that there. Also, we have trainings in France. It's Julie Chaperoy who are doing these trainings, and you have a nice schedule if you go to agilepeople.com. These are in French, and you have a discount code here as well. Business Agility Paris 2021 is the discount code. Get in touch with Julie. Join her meetup group in France, the Agile People meetup group in France. And if you have questions, Julie Chaperoy, you find her on agilepeople.com. Last but not least, we invite you to join us, participate in a training, or visit Agile People. Thank you very much for listening, and I really hope that you have learned something new today. Thank you.
Thank you, Pia. It was a lovely presentation and a lot of concepts to digest. We have a first question here. Is it possible to get the slide? It's a question from Laura.
Yes, I can definitely send the PDF deck to you. No worries. Yes. But maybe if they contact me, or should they contact you?
As they want, or if they contact us, we will forward them to you.
Yeah.
Both words.
Yeah.
Okay. There's a question about, we know that individual performance is something, it's a heritage and a legacy that we inherited from what we call the silent monitor by Robert Owen, used to monitor the performance of the workers in factories. And compared to today, as you said, it doesn't work anymore. Do you have any examples of performance that creates or emerges where collaboration, engagement emerges from what we call a traditional environment?
Of course, it's about stimulating intrinsic motivation, and that starts with Agile People coaches or managers. I would like to call managers Agile People coaches for the future of work. They are understanding their people on a deeper level. So that means that they need to understand what motivates people, what makes people tick, and they need deep relationships with all of their people. So it's about the people, the individuals, and the relationships, right? Individuals and interactions over processes and tools. This is the first value of the Agile Manifesto. And that is indeed the most important, that you understand people's needs and make it possible for them to live these needs in the system. Then you will get the performance from people, because then they will invest their true selves and be intrinsically motivated instead of being motivated only by extrinsic rewards. So this is the way to do it. It's to let people set their own goals with the help of, for example, OKRs is a fantastic tool. I love OKRs, objectives and key results, because then your goals is set by yourself, and you are responsible, and you're only judging yourself in the system of work. Nobody else is going to judge you. This is very hurtful when other people are judging you. You can really not know the truth about somebody else. You can only know the truth about yourself. You can never know the truth about somebody else. So that's why when we give feedback, when we judge other people, we are not we only express our own perspective, and it's only one person's perspective often.
Thank you. We have time for one last question. It's a question from Jan. All people believe completely in theory. Why? How much more would be needed to be done?
If everybody starts from theory, why, right? Because everybody believes themselves that they are Y people, right? Nobody believes I'm an X people. Nobody says that. But we get X behaviors when we treat people like X. So it starts with you. How do you treat other people? How do you see other people? Do you believe that they are motivated? Do you believe that they want to be their best selves, that they want to create value for some other customer group? Or do you believe that they are only motivated by money? So you will get the behaviors accordingly from that person. And this is really important because it starts from here. These are the limiting structures that we have created is because we believe that people are X. That's why we have the structures in place, because we don't trust people.
Interesting. It's really the last one. It's a question from Andrea. What kind of model would you recommend one should use to evaluate people's performance?
I don't think you should evaluate other people's performance. I think you should evaluate your own performance and systems performance. You should not judge other people and evaluate other people. Stop doing that, and people will perform a lot better. Why? Ask yourselves, why are you evaluating people's performance? What is the reason for doing that? And when you dig deeper into that why, you will come up with, oh, it's about rewards. It's about how much we should pay somebody. But that will create unfairness in your organizational system when you do these things. And that will make most people perform worse. It's about systems performance. It's not about evaluating individual performance. Don't do that anymore.
Thank you. Right, I will give a hand now to Leila Benachur, so she can explain the first workshop of this conference that will happen in a few minutes from now.